Welcome back as Lossless Scaling Frame Generation has just received a new update in the form of version 3. It improves the image quality, performance and latency. Version 3 is built on a new and efficient architecture. This is its update log. Better quality, reduced flickering and border artifacts with noticeable enhancements in motion clarity and overall smoothness. Image quality should not degrade during fast visual motion. We have seen this happening in the case of AMD's AFMF driver level implementation of frame generation. LSFG's performance is improved by reducing the GPU overhead for its each mode. For example, there has been a 40% GPU load reduction for X2 mode compared to LSFG2 non-performance mode, over 45% reduction in GPU load for multipliers above X2 compared to LSFG non-performance mode. To improve the performance further, you can also use resolution scale feature of LSFG. 90% resolution scale value is roughly equivalent to LSFG2 performance mode. Resolution scale feature basically processes the inputs at a lower resolution, then outputs them at the original resolution. It comes with a minor impact on the image quality. I have already demonstrated this in my StarCraft video. For example, if you are running a game at 1440p resolution, you can set the resolution scale value to 50%. 1440p output will be generated from a 720p input. Improve latency. They have measured the latency using OS LTD tool at 40 base FPS. X2 mode shows approximately 24% better end-to-end latency compared to LSFG2. Text is a bit small here. They ran Counter-Strike 2 on a PC with RTX 4090. Game was running at 3440 by 1440 resolution. Reflex was enabled. Base FPS 40, latency value was around 20 milliseconds. Then they enabled LSFG2 X2 mode. Latency increased to around 54 milliseconds. With LSFG3 X2 mode, latency value increased to around 41 milliseconds, roughly a 13 milliseconds drop in latency compared to LSFG2 X2 mode. Version 3 comes with an unlocked multiplier that supports up to X20 mode. X5 or above mode is recommended for high refresh rate displays. For example, on a display that supports 240Hz refresh rate, you can use X5 mode in a game with a 48 FPS cap. It will try to increase the FPS to around 240. Use X6 mode in a game with a 60 FPS cap. It will try to increase the FPS to 360. Use X8 mode in a game with a 60 FPS cap. It will try to increase the FPS to 480. This is just insane. The developer recommends a minimum of 30 as the base FPS for a decent experience. 40 or higher FPS is preferred. 60 FPS would be ideal at full HD resolution. If you are running a game at 1440p resolution, just set the resolution scale value to 75%, close to full HD resolution. For 4K resolution, set the resolution scale value to 50%. Locking the game frame rate is recommended to avoid hitting the GPU bottleneck and ensure smoother frame pacing. If the game's base FPS exceeds half of your display's maximum refresh rate value, just cap the game's FPS at half of your display's maximum refresh rate value. For example, I'll be testing the games on my Rog Ally. Its display supports up to 120Hz refresh rate. If the game's FPS exceeds 60, I'll just cap the FPS value to 60. But if the FPS is even lower than that, for example 45 to 50, just cap it at 45. Basically just cap the FPS at a value that your PC can output constantly. A new user interface for lossless scaling is available now. In order to use it, you need to run the beta version of lossless scaling. This is the UI. DXGI capture API is working again in Windows 11 24H2. My Rog Ally is running on Windows 11 24H3. In order to download the beta build of lossless scaling, just select the application in your Steam library. Right click, properties, click on betas here. Click on this drop down bar next to beta participation, then click on beta. The beta will be downloaded. Now I'll show you LSFG settings. Just launch lossless scaling application. Click on the bar under frame generation. From here we can select the version of LSFG. I am using version 3, older versions. Using LSFG's X2 mode tries to double the FPS. X3 mode tries to triple the FPS. X4 mode tries to quadruple the FPS. Click on custom here. Now you will be able to select modes higher than X4. See, up to 20 is supported. Not for Rog Ally, I'll stick with X2. Resolution scale value maxed out. Clip cursor setting enabled. Sync mode set to default. Max frame latency set to 1. Don't want the FPS to exceed LS max refresh rate value, that is 120. HDR off, and it does not support it. G-Sync off. Draw FPS on. Capture API DXGI. That's it. Click on settings here. Hotkey for enabling LSFG Control Alt and S. Start as administrator setting on. Keep the app running in the background. On Rog Ally, you need to disable one display setting in order to prevent the colors from getting washed out when using LSFG. Just go to your desktop, right click, click on display setting, scroll down until you find advanced display setting. There it is, just click on it. From here, disable this setting automatically. Manage color for apps off. I'll kick things off with Indiana Jones and the Great Circle PC Game Pass version of the game. Connected my 8-bit to Ultimate 2C controller to Ally via 2.4 GHz band wireless mode. We'll be showing you the performance metrics using a custom afterburner overlay. Using a 30 watts manual profile, all three power values set at 30 watts, 720p resolution, CPU boost off. My Ally is running on BIOS version 441. I have installed AMD's latest GPU driver, Adrenaline version 24.12.1. In-game resolution 720p. Display mode borderless window. Everything set to low. V-Sync off. FPS limit 1000. Motion blur, chromatic aberration, and film grain disabled. Depth of field enabled. Resolution scale set to 66%. Vegetation animation quality set to ultra. That's it. I'm in the city of Vatican. I tested the older version of LSFG in this game. It used to produce a lot of graphical artifacts around our equipped item. Okay, here FPS is a bit variable, hitting the GPU bottleneck 41 to 45. It's better to just cap the FPS at 40 for a more stable experience. Then I'll be enabling LSFG. Almost hitting the GPU bottleneck. Look at that VRAM usage, 6.9 GB. I'll cap the FPS using Afterburner. Set it to 40. This is the PC Game Pass version of the game, so I don't have access to its Adrenaline settings, otherwise I would have used Radiant Chill. Enabled LSFG by pressing its hotkey combo Control Alt and S. It's working. Base FPS 40, FPS with frame generation 80. Resume the game. Yeah, I can observe the added amount of smoothness. This is amazing. 80 FPS, and those graphical artifacts around our equipped item are fixed now. So it's a big improvement over the older build. Image quality has definitely been improved with version 3. This is amazing. There are some minor artifacts, nothing significant. It can be due to the lower base FPS value. Higher the base FPS, less the graphical artifacts. It's as simple as that. This is still playable. GPU load is around 93%. Very impressive results. Now I'll use X3 frame generation mode. Unscale, set mode to X3. Scale, go back to the game. I have already applied a 40 FPS cap. X3 mode will try to triple the FPS, increase it from 40 to 120. Your base FPS dropped down to around 35. It comes with a higher performance hit compared to X2 mode. Can observe some more graphical artifacts around the equipped item. See, fuzzy textures. Latency seems to be slightly higher than X2 mode. Personally, I would recommend X2 mode on Rog Ally. It's up to you. 100 FPS with frame generation. Now I'll try X4 mode. Why not? Unscale X4. Cap the FPS at 30. This mode will try to quadruple the FPS from 30 to 120. Back to the game. FPS is locked at 30. This is not bad. FPS with frame generation 120, but just check out the image quality. So many graphical artifacts. Can you observe the garbled textures around the equipped item and the corners of the display? Again, I would not recommend this mode, at least on Rog Ally. GPU load is close to 70%. Now I'll try out the unlock multiplier mode. Unscale. Select the custom mode. Value set to 5. I'll cap the base FPS to 20. Not recommended, just doing it for the sake of testing. LSFG enabled. Base FPS 20 increased to around 100. Let's see what happens. More graphical artifacts. The fuzzy and garbled textures are easily noticeable now when I move the camera in complete circles. But I'll be honest, smoothing effect is working very nicely. This is not 20 FPS. For example, I'll just disable the smoothing effect. Disable LSFG. This is the game running at 20 FPS. Oh my god, so choppy. And I'll enable LSFG again. 100 FPS with frame generation. Look at that smoothness. Amazing. Input delay is manageable. I would not recommend it, just use the X2 mode. I'll go back to X2 mode. Test another game. Elden Ring. Adrenaline settings for Elden Ring. VSync on, VSync off, anti-lag setting on. That's it. In-game settings, display mode borderless windowed, 720p resolution. Using medium to high settings, motion blur disabled. That's it. I am playing Shadow of War 3 expansion. This is the graveside plain area. Yeah, here FPS is within a range of 50 to 60. Not hitting the GPU bottleneck. 77% GPU load. In some demanding areas, FPS can drop down to as low as 40. Check out the input response. Very responsive controls. This is the game running without LSFG. Fast inputs are required in this game, especially when you're fighting against a boss. Now I'll enable LSFG X2 mode. Pressed its hotkey combo, Control Alt and S. Yeah, I can observe the added amount of smoothness. FPS with frame generation 100. This is amazing. Not a big drop in the base FPS value. 4950. So LSFG comes with a minor GPU overhead in this game. Summon Torrent. I'll head to Castle Lenses. Go through the bridge. It's very demanding. Not observing any significant artifacts around the character model. Very good results in Elden Ring. There's the bridge. Keep an eye on the base FPS. Okay, I can observe a strip of garbled textures around the bottom edge. It's a very small strip right here. May not be able to observe it on Rog Ally. Oh my god. Almost got impaled there. Yeah, base FPS dropped down to around 40. Still the game is running smoothly. See? This is amazing. 34 FPS. This can happen. Okay, I'll just cap the FPS at 30. Oh no, can't pause the game. Play it this way. Now I'll pause it. Cap FPS to 30. Back to the game. FPS with frame generation 60. Still not observing any significant graphical artifacts. Amazing results. Smoothing effect is noticeable. Latency. Would be better to just cap the FPS at 40. FPS in this game for the most part will stay close to 40 on Rog Ally. I'll use X3 mode now. X3 mode. Use a 40 FPS cap. Back to the game. Your smoothing effect is working properly. Base FPS 38, FPS with frame generation 110. But look at those graphical artifacts around the character model and the corners of the display. Again, I would not recommend using X3 mode. This is for Rog Ally. Input delay is not a problem. This is amazing. Just a minor increase in latency. Quickly demonstrate X4 mode. 30 FPS cap. Back to the game. Base FPS 30, FPS with frame generation 120. It's the same thing again. Garbled textures around the character model and the edges of the display. They have become more aggressive now. But input delay is still not a problem. This is amazing. Now I'll be testing the next game. In Elden Ring, just use the X2 mode. With a 40 FPS cap on Rog Ally, you should be getting good results. The best part is, you can even use LSFG with the game's online mode enabled. Now I'll be running Wuthering waves back to X2 mode. Need to apply a 60 FPS cap for this game in order to prevent frame pacing issues. Internal settings for the game. FreeSync enable, anti-lag setting enable, VSync off. In-game setting, display mode set to windowed mode, 900p resolution, frame rate 60, VSync off. Special effects quality set to high, FSR on, shadow quality medium, LOD bias high, capsule AO volumetric fog and lighting enabled, motion blur disabled, anti-aliasing enabled and disable gloom, crowd density high, enemy head flash and damage number settings enabled, physics based animation enabled as well, cutscene mode full screen. There is a character rover. I am in the city of Jinzhou. Older builds of LSFG produce very aggressive graphical artifacts around a character model whenever we used to glide around the world. Use a hook. 42 FPS, see? I'll just cap the FPS at 40, then enable LSFG's X2 mode. Use RTSS to apply a 40 FPS cap. See? Input response. Now enable LSFG. Back to the game. FPS increase from 40 to 80. Look at that added amount of smoothness. This is amazing. Oh no, I am observing some artifacts around rover's head. I'll use his hook ability. Input delay is not a problem. I'll glide around, move the camera in complete circles. Okay, character model is not flickering. And this artifact has been fixed with this new version of LSFG. But character model's head flickers occasionally. I just remove this 40 FPS cap. Back to 60. Resume the game. Okay, character's head is still flickering. The artifact is less aggressive now, it seems. It's up to you. I'll just use the X3 mode now. X3. Apply a 40 FPS cap. I'm expecting the graphical artifacts to become more aggressive. Back to the game. Base FPS 40, FPS with frame generation 120. I can observe the added amount of smoothness. But now I'm observing some fuzzy textures around the character model and the edges of the display. Character's head is also flickering, so I would not recommend using this mode. Input delay is not a problem, but it's slightly higher than the X2 mode. Definitely usable. Look at that head flickering going on. Quickly demonstrate X4 mode. Apply a 30 FPS cap. Back to the game. X4 mode enabled. Noticeable input delay. Very aggressive graphical artifacts. FPS with frame generation 120. Avoid using this mode. Look at the garble textures around the edges of the display, top left and top right corners. Stick to X2 mode. So after testing the games on Rog Ally, I can definitely say that LSFG version 3 comes with improved performance, image quality and latency. For this device, I would recommend using X2 mode only. With X3 and X4 modes, I observed more graphical artifacts and higher latency than the X2 mode. Version 3 is definitely lighter on the GPU than the previous version. It also produces significantly less graphical artifacts. In Indiana Jones, the graphical artifacts around our equip item have been fixed. Even in Wuthering waves, when we are gliding, significantly less graphical artifacts are produced around our character model compared to the older build of LSFG. Based on the initial impressions, LSFG version 3 does seem to be better than AFMF2 in every department. I will be comparing them soon. We'll see. So that's it for the video guys. I hope you find it useful. Thanks for watching and have a nice day.